Welcome to this FEI Coach webinar. I'm Gareth Marr, and I'm delighted to be joined by Jared Dunne, FEI Head Performance Analyst, and with the senior men's team, as well as Niall O'Regan, Head of Coach Education. Guys, thanks for jumping on this webinar. I think this will be a really interesting topic about performance analysis and how it can be utilised across coaching at all levels. Jared, just to talk about your role in particular, like how do you balance working with the men's team, the Republic of Ireland men's team, going into, I think, maybe your third or fourth manager now in this new campaign coming up, as well as what you do for the FEI?
Yeah, hi Gareth. So it's difficult enough, but having to learn about a new head coach and new relationships, build new relationships with the coaches. But it's something I've had to do over a number of times already, as mentioned before. So when I first started back in 2015 in this role, I was working with Martin and Niall as head coach, and they were halfway through the campaign. They played 4 games already, so they were well into it at that stage. And Martin had been there a couple of years, 3 years, I think, at that stage. So whereas the last time round with Mick was coming in, I was much more established. And now with Stephen coming in, again, I've got a few campaigns behind me, so I understand the role and I understand the demands. Now it's just about building the relationships.
And what about the role? How much has that changed in that period of time?
Yeah, it's changing quite a lot. I mean, when I started back in 2015, I suppose the analysis department was small at that time in terms of technology. Technology was starting to change quite a bit. We're now starting to get access to things like 4K and software, and the technology has advanced dramatically in that last couple of years. Previously, Brian McCarthy was there for 12 years before me. But when I took on this role, I took on a lot more of the I suppose the other side of it as well, which is in relation to the other international teams as well. But yeah, it's changed a lot. It's changed a lot.
Niall, in terms of performance analysis, how does that relate to coaching, do you think? Like, and not just at the highest level that Jared's working at, but just at grassroots level as well. What should that translate as?
Yeah, well, I think it's an interesting topic, because sometimes when you hear the title performance analysis, you automatically think of the professional end of the game. But for all of us, we've all been analysts, whether it be a social analyst sitting down and watching a game in a pub looking at Sky Sports, or whether we're a grassroots coach, parent or volunteer, and you're on the sideline and you're analysing your son or your daughter, or you're analysing your team or analysing an opposition team. You always know that a parent coach or a volunteer coach, they'll come and say to you, oh, we're playing this team today, and the last time we played them, they did this, this, and this. And that's a form of analysis, because what you're doing is you're preparing yourself and your team to play against an opponent, and you're understanding that the last time they might have had a certain individual or a certain style or a system of playing which they preferred. So it's really about acknowledging that performance analysis is something that every one of us do, even as parents just observing the sport, as the volunteer grassroots coaches, as they work their way up through the ages, it becomes a little bit more prominent. And then obviously when a player starts to really show some promise and they start playing in interleagues or representative squads, you'll notice that performance analysis does get that bit more professional. But I know myself from working with Jared personally in the pro license a number of years ago. Jared was working with a team outside of his roles, and it was in the Leinster Senior League, and he showed phenomenal promise on how he used the software for his team. So it's really something that now we're very lucky with Avenir Sports. They provide us with huddle performance analysis, and we get it at a phenomenal discounted rate because of the volume of coaches that are engaging with it. And for us, it's really something that we would encourage grassroots coaches to embrace. And it could be as simple as recording a practice on an iPad or an iPhone, or it might even be just recording an individual, because sometimes you need that video reference where you're trying to teach a child or teach a person how to fix something in their game. And by giving them that objective video reference, it might actually resonate more with them. So it really does exist from top to bottom, and we're very lucky with Jared. He's very much not just a performance analyst. He's somebody that will be an expert coach. He's got his UEFA Pro license, his UEFA GKA license, which are the 2 highest qualifications in the game. So it's great to have somebody like that understands coaches, working in that industry. And that's after forging a great relationship with us and Coach Ed with Jared.
Jared, can you speak a little bit about that? It's an interesting segue that Niall's put in there in terms of utilising it yourself as a coach, the performance analysis when you were coaching Portlaoise.
Yeah, so while I was doing my pro license, and obviously I've had a really good understanding of the products that were out there. One of the things I didn't want to do was I didn't want to use any of the FAI equipment, might seem strange, but that's just the way I was because I felt that this was something that was my club's, my hometown town club. So what we did was I invested in a Huddle license for the team, Huddle bronze license, and I purchased a tripod and an attachment, and for an old iPad mini that I had, like an iPad mini 1. And basically what we did was we recorded every game, uploaded them onto Huddle. We played mostly on Friday nights at home. So what I would do then is on the following morning, I'd just start analysing the game using the Huddle system. I mean, again, I had access to everything I needed in terms of the international teams if I wanted, but I didn't want to go down that route. I wanted to use it as a grassroots coach. Fully analysed the games on Saturday mornings, and then I was ready to send out information to the players. And I found it really, really interesting because there was a couple of things that I was seeing. I was seeing the game back fairly quickly. I was able to look at individual players. I was able to look at our set pieces, our attack, defend, transitions, all that sort of thing. But from my point of view, what it did was it helped me then to build a better relationship with the players because I was able to talk to them individually, give them feedback Saturday afternoon, Saturday evening, Sunday morning, Sunday afternoon, and then we trained every Monday night. Mostly Monday nights when we played on Friday night, we'd have a good tactical session, but the players then would have taken on board what I've given them, the feedback over the weekend. And what happened then, because of that, then we were able to focus specifically on areas that we were weak on or areas that we needed to improve on. It was a phenomenal thing, and I mean, it might seem like a small thing, but we were conceding goals between 15 and 20 minutes in every half. So we were dominating teams early on, and we had a really good side, but we were dominating teams, but we maybe weren't scoring the goals that we should have taken, our chances. And there was always that little bit of a lull 15 to 20 minutes into the game. And we were conceding chances and conceding goals. And I didn't even notice this really properly until I looked at the statistics that come out of the Huddle system. And it was really intriguing. So we spoke about it and we decided that we would have a trigger. And after 15 minutes, the players would know 15 minutes gone, we're going to work really hard the next 10 minutes or so. And we started to keep clean sheets, and we ended up winning the league, and we narrowly missed out on promotion the second year. So yeah, it was great. It was a great experience. We filmed training. We filmed everything basically. We had guest speakers in. We filmed them. We put them up on the Huddle system. But the really, really interesting part of it was for the home games, it was easy. My niece, who was into photography and video, she used to video the games first. But for the away games, like I wasn't expecting her to go and come along to the game. So what we used to do is we'd give the substitutes 10 minutes. You had 10 minutes on the video. Now, it might seem a bit crazy that you're taking your substitutes at the side of the pitch and asking them to video the game with no height. But for me, we still got a huge amount of detail. We got stats. We didn't miss goals that were scored. We didn't miss chances that were created by other teams. And the players really bought into it. But again, it might seem a bit strange that your substitutes are doing that. If a player came off early, he was the first one on next. And there was always the argument over who was going to go next. But it was good. It was good.
How did you get the players to buy into it, considering that these were senior players as well?
Yeah. Explain to them why it was important for us to do this. And I think the fact that we didn't just video a game and throw it up for them and let them just leave it there and look at it, they were getting individual feedback every weekend. So that meant that what they were able to do was they were able to see improvements in their own game. So they almost became like there was almost an insatiable appetite for it. They really, really wanted this. And they felt that this was giving us an edge. So when we racked up to a team playing away from home and we had a camera and we had a tripod, and suddenly teams were looking at you kind of, what are they doing there? And then obviously some of them would have known who I was, and the fact that I worked with the senior men's team. So it almost felt like this was giving us an edge. It did give us an edge because the players were able to look back objectively at their own performances, but also I was able to provide an incredible amount of feedback for them.
Niall, is there a recommended age group when you should start using that form of video analysis? I appreciate what you said earlier on, that performance analysis can come in many forms and shapes, but if someone is looking to do it the route that Jer has recommended there in terms of videoing games, do you think there should be a starting point of an age group?
Yeah, I think it's something that can be utilised for multiple platforms, and I think obviously the first reference when you go to the very young age all the way down to the beginners in terms of the 5, 6, 7 and 8 year olds, you obviously have to follow the FAI guidelines, and you find them on our website. in terms of the conditions in relation to recording. Most grassroots clubs anyway would have in the sign-up forms at the registration at the start of the year, they'd have that permission to record or take photographs. So it's important just to make sure you follow those. But for me, I think the opportunity within performance analysis is, that time when one young player does something really, really special, or that young player scores an amazing goal, to have that on video is something that they have for the rest of their lives. And also, it gives parents a great connection, because sometimes the youngest of players are brought to a training ground, dropped off, and a parent may leave. And a parent or a volunteer coach may nearly feel like, God, I'm nearly babysitting this group of young people. But what it is too is it's about how you engage with the parents. And I can guarantee you, if you were working with young players and you were recording the practice and you were editing, as Gerard was talking about, which is literally, I always call it like football Facebook, it's that easy to use. If you were doing that and then you were sending videos on the Huddle system to each of the parents, because obviously you register through Huddle in terms of an email address, so you're automatically engaging the parents that way. It would be a phenomenal resource to put up. This is what we did in training today, just in case you weren't able to attend and see. This is what we're trying to do. These are the practices. And even as they progress up through the ladder, if you have that software and you have that facility of providing video of what you do with a U13, U14 player, it's unbelievable. And like for ourselves, and I know that Gerard is actively working significantly with the men's national leagues, the women's national leagues, but now also with the underage leagues. Like, there's an unbelievable excitement towards performance analysis, and all of the young players in the 13s and 15s, 17s, 19s national leagues, they're all hungry to be successful. And one of the best references is video reference, because it removes that subjectivity of you and I. So if I say to you, Garrett, you didn't play well on Saturday, and I have nothing to back that up outside of my opinion, then it can become a conflict. And you might take that as an insult. You might say, well, why did you say that to me and you didn't say that to anybody else? And I mightn't be able to think back, well, there was definitely a reason for that. By having video reference, it's literally, Garrett, can you have a look at the video and come back to me and tell me how you think you did? Because what it does is there's nowhere to hide. And I think really, for me, it's about clubs need to realize that investing in this type of software and investing in this type of facility, it also provides a different income stream in terms of sponsorship. If you go to a local sponsor and say, well, every one of our home games, we're going to record them because we're going to have a camera on a mast, and every goal that's scored, we'll promote that on social media, and we'll promote that with your company branding at the bottom of it. That's phenomenal engagement. Like, you really could see the success of video for our own Stephanie Roach. Like, would that have ever have gotten to the levels that it got without the social media interaction? And without performance analysis, that goal might never have been seen, and Stephanie might never have gotten the plaudits that she deserved. And really, that to me is the value of the social media world and video evidence, and having performance analysis as a video tool. It's nearly becoming an additional coaching tool that's nearly a must-have.
I think that's a great point, Niall, because I think the backstory that people probably don't realise, they think somebody just happened to catch this goal that Stephanie scored, in Ferrycarrig Park one day, but it was actually John Flood, the Wexford Youth manager, who actually started recording the games and then actually shared that video with the opposition, who was Peamount United. And then Eileen Gleeson, the manager of Peamount, put the video online and went viral, and Stephanie went all the way to be nominated for the Postcast Award. So I actually linked all the way back to performance analysis, which John was kind of not ahead of his time, but certainly in the league, he was one of the first ones to do it, which is great. Can I just ask, Niall, in terms of anybody grassroots level that is interested coaching wise to get into performance analysis, is it something that you might think including as part of the coach education pathway going forward in the future, where there might be some sort of course for people to get onto performance analysis?
Yeah, well, as people probably well know, at this point in time, we're launching our new pathway in September, and a significant part of that will be a CPD modular route, in terms of giving coaches a very clear indication as what they need to do once they've completed a course. So if a coach does a PDP1, they might now say, well, what do I do next? We'll have a very clear reference point for them to be able to go through and complete different modules. And one of those modules that Gerard and I have been working actively with Avenir Sports and Huddle on is performance analysis. So we're literally going to have a full modular system, all the way from grassroots all the way up to the pro license, which I think in total we'll have 6 different courses spreading from a 3-hour introductory workshop all the way up to a 3-day professional course at the UEFA Pro license level. So it's really an exciting time in terms of our joint ventures that we've had over the last number of years. And performance analysis is touched on in all of our national and UEFA courses, but we're really looking at now implementing it in the grassroots courses and making them aware of it. And for anyone that is looking to get more information for their club, they just need to email me on niall.o'regan@fai.ie, and I can give them the connections in terms of avenue and supports that they might need in terms of setting it up and what best practice is with it.
So just to go back to what Niall mentioned there about sponsorship and clubs and that. And so one of the things that we did with Portlaoise was we're a grassroots club and referees were travelling from Dublin because of the Leinster Senior League. So what happened was that was a significant cost for us. So what we did was we did a player of the match every week, and we asked local sponsors to come in, and the fee would be to cover the referee's expenses. So it wasn't a huge amount, but what would happen was in the week leading up to the game, we'd be like, this Friday night, Portlaoise are at home to X team, and this game is going to be sponsored by our local sponsor and the name of the sponsor. And we link all their Facebook, Twitter page, their Instagram, all that to it. And then what would happen is then we'd ask them to pick a man of the match, and then post game, then they get a photograph of that player. And then what we do is very easily, I'd link the highlights, put out a 2-minute highlight piece to our social media pages, and then what would happen is we'd be linking them back to them. Some of the sponsors that were giving us money were saying they were getting more traffic than ever before on their websites, on their social media sites, and they were actually getting way more. So they're almost lining up for the following season. Some of them were lining up for the following. When can I do this again? It's been so important to me. And that was all done using the video as well. We did other things like we got a sponsored goal of the month competition and a sponsored end of season competition. So as a grassroots club trying to get some money coming in, you're almost asking them to be to help drive your club forward, but your name is going to be out there. So what can we do to help you? And it was a phenomenal success. I mean, we played an end of season game against Inchicore. It was us or them to win the league. The game ended up 2-2, but it was 3 of the goals that were scored were outstanding. And they were up on social media. Everybody picked up on over the next couple of days. There was thousands of hits on Facebook and Twitter. And it was a really big success story for us. And a couple of days later, we ended up, because St. James Gate didn't win the game, we won the league, and that just carried on. It was fantastic. So
very good. It's kind of, as you say, evidence there, and what Niall's alluded to as well, that you can use performance analysis at a grassroots level or an amateur level to make money for the club as well, which is a great resource. Ger, can I just stop you for a second and just, like, we've heard a couple of buzzwords or titles, company names, Avenir, Huddle, what are these, and to the people who don't really know?
Okay, so Huddle are a global company. They originated, I think, in the US, and their base is in Nebraska. And they were very much around US sports. But back in 2015, they bought SportsCode. And SportsCode was the leading performance analysis software for teams, from rugby union to football worldwide. So it was one of the biggest software companies that were out there. So this merger then brought these two companies together. And Avenir Sports, who we've mentioned a few times, they were the providers for performance analysis for the product SportsCode in Ireland. And because of the merger, then they became involved in this. So what Huddle effectively did was SportsCode is the analysis software that's used by the elite teams. And what has happened then is Huddle almost became initially like the YouTube version of that. So it was a way of sharing your analysis on a platform with video, with data, with a messaging service, but it's gone way beyond that. So since 2015, it's gone much further than that. In terms of Wisecout, Huddle also last summer acquired Wisecout. Wisecout is the biggest performance analysis solution, I guess, in the world. It's in over 250 competitions every weekend. Over 2,000 events are tagged every game. It's a huge company, and historically has had the biggest leaks. So the merger of Wisecout with Huddle will make it a better product. And then because of that, then all of these systems are integrated and working together. So you have an all-in-one solution, and they call that Huddle Pro Suite. So it's just a really good product. And of course, in Ireland, Avenir are the distributors for those products.
And these are being utilised now by the SSE Electricity League, and there's a deal been signed now for the Women's National League to use it as well. Yeah,
so actually this is interesting. When I was finishing up my pro license, I went in with Bray Wanderers for the last 6 games of the season when Bray were in the Premier League as assistant to Gary Cronin. And one of the biggest things that jumped out with me was, having worked previously with Portlaoise in the Leinster Senior League, was we didn't have opposition analysis. It just wasn't being done at that level. Yes, some teams were utilising it, like Dundalk and teams like that, and Cork were using it really, really well, but some teams weren't. And to be honest, I was trying to prepare players during the week to play against a team that I didn't know a lot about. So really stuck it with me to say, look, and we need to provide a solution. So we provided a solution last year, and then this year, then we've had all the games so far this season of the SSE Premier Division, First Division, through Y-Scout, and each of the teams have a huddle license as well. So the games are tagged every weekend. Games are up by midnight on Friday night, tagged on Saturday morning, 8 a.m. 12 midday on Saturdays, so the coaches can get straight in and look at that. And I mean, one of the things that I've seen this season was UCD scored a goal in the 5-1 loss to Drogheda. Liam Kerrigan scored it. It was a throw out from the goalkeeper, and he picked it up in his own half. And he ran through, he beat 4 players and scored. Now, previously, that goal would have been lost. We would have never had a recording of that goal, or if we did, it would have been stored on someone's hard drive, shared with the players. And that goal is probably potentially one of the goals of the season as a team, as an individual goal. So a lot of that now is happening in the division. A huge amount of detail that the coaches are getting access to. And as you mentioned already, for the past 3 seasons, we've been doing the Women's National League with Huddle. And this year, we're looking forward now to adding Y-Scout to that. So all of the games will be uploaded and tagged on Y-Scout. The clubs will have access to every one of their own games, plus the opposition games. And that then feeds into our international team. So for female players playing in the Women's National League, Dave Connell, Sue Ronan, James Scott, and of course Vera Powden, they can all see those games. And they can look at individual players in every single game that they've played, with every action that they've done, and they can break them down very, very easily. We can get reports on them, data on them, just phenomenal amount of detail that couldn't be done before.
No, this is all part of the game, the development of the game for players as well as coaches going forward, isn't it? It's, as you mentioned, it's being utilised in the underage SSE HRC League as well. So this is part of what players and teams expect now.
Yeah, and I think something that may get lost in it is that the amount of time we spend out of Ireland looking at, for example, Ruth Doctor, the high performance director, and I were in the process of the new strategy design that Ruth is designing for high performance, and we literally travelled the world. I think we went to nearly 20 different countries in terms of looking at what is best practice, and parts of that were the performance analysis. And genuinely, I'm delighted to say, and I'm delighted for Ger to hear it, that what we have here in Ireland is absolutely one of the world-class systems, because many federations don't have the structures in place that we have. And I always say to people when I travel around the world, our strength is because we're so small. Like, because we have national leagues now at 13s, 15s, 17s and 19s in the boys, and obviously at 17s in the girls, and the hope for the development of others, it means that our top-end pool players are all in one location, and it's much easier to access. So for recruitment, for scouting, for promotion of our players, it's great to have that central location where they're all together, rather than us working off the basis of players being spread geographically all over the country, playing one player with one team, 2 players with another team. It's great to have all of the best players playing together. And for us, really, the modern young player, they're so IT proficient, they're so comfortable with IT, they're comfortable with using an iPad. My own son, he's 3.5, and the minute he starts crying, my wife will kill me for saying it, but I give him an iPad and he's able to scroll through and go onto Netflix and find Peppa Pig or whatever he wants. It's scary how comfortable young people are now with this. And for us, it's really important that we get coaches comfortable with this software. And genuinely, I would be somebody that I wouldn't say I'm IT proficient, but over the last number of years, from just practicing it, just using it, it's like anything. There is no instruction booklet with Twitter or Facebook. You go on, you play around with it, you try it. Performance analysis is exactly the same. And I would say Jared is best placed to answer this, but there is no one way, because every coach is subjective in themselves. They will look at the game and look for things themselves, whether it be their own references, their own playing style, their own playing experience, their own positional experience. If you played as a goalkeeper, you look at the goalkeeper perspective. If you played as a centre midfielder, you look at the centre midfielder perspective. But for me, it's about making coaches realise that we're not saying it's a one-shoe-fit-all. This is the way you must do it. We're just giving people the skill sets to be comfortable with technology and to use technology, because young players, we have a phenomenal program that Ruth Doctor, the high performance director, got us funding for, and it was where we gave free education to the players in the 15s, 17s and 19s National League boys and the 17s girls. And what it did was it allowed them to progress through our grassroots educational program while they were playing. And parts of that was given to us as feedback was that they were able to go all the way up to the National D licence at U19 players, but they never really touched on the performance analysis. And it was the one constant feedback from the groups that have completed that program was, I thought there'd be more on performance analysis. So that really gave us the clear feedback that we need to start layering that into everything that we do, because it does exist, Ger, doesn't it, from top to bottom. I think there's not many people in the world now don't have social media or aren't using technology, and it's about really layering that in football terms.
Absolutely, yes, Niall. I mean, look, Gareth, you mentioned this. You asked me at the start, has it changed much since I came in 2015? It's phenomenal, the difference. I mean, everything now is data, it's video, it's high-end video, it's instant, and that has changed how we work. Like Niall, you mentioned about young people doing courses. I mean, one of the things that we've done, as you know, about the IT Carlo course, Gareth, we introduced that back in, I think it was 2007. I happened to be the national coordinator for schools and colleges at the time, and managed to convince the FAI that this was a good course, with the idea being that in 15 years' time, these guys will be out there and actually making a difference to football from a business point of view. And that's nearly ready to happen now. It's nearly 15 years, so it's nearly happened. But you can see the amount of staff members that we have that are ex-IT Carlo students, the amount of performance analysts, the amount of coaches that are out there that have come through the system. And one of the things we looked at back then was we said that performance analysis was going to be a really important part of the course. So
and it has been a success. Gary Sweeney works at Manchester United for just one good example.
Yeah, Gary went over took a job at Reading and took a part-time role at Reading, and now has ended up at Manchester United, one of the biggest clubs in the world. But there's so many success stories from that, and the clubs and the teams in around the area have benefited massively from that. But just in terms of performance analysis, when it moved to a 4-year degree, it was a full module in performance analysis. So first 3 years was part of coach education, and probably was where we looked at introducing performance analysis in the first time properly. Through to the UEFA B, but now it's a full module. And we have students now out there running their own businesses as performance analysts as well. And in an area that's not easy to get work, some of them are doing really, really well. There's guys traveling across the world with a degree and performance analysis, a huge level of experience in their back pocket.
So talk to me, Ger and Niall, on this point about coaching the coaches to use performance analysis.
Yeah, so now do you want to take this first part about the B and the A?
Yeah, I think what we've done over the last number of years is obviously one of the key things. We're very lucky in terms of having Ruth Doctor, the high performance director, as being a Gyro panel member. And what that means is he's part of that very small group in UEFA that really decide upon the changes that are going to happen within world football. So having that on your doorstep is phenomenal, because he can really prepare us. And what people mightn't realise is that every 3 years, the UEFA audit what you're doing in your own respective country, and you have to be given permission and you have to reach standards in terms of best practice for them to allow you to continue. So it's not a matter of being given, you signed the coaching convention and that you can just deliver forevermore. We only recently had our most recent review in 2019, and thankfully all was given phenomenal feedback, and we've signed up for another 3 years with it with their permission. So it's really important that people are aware that it's not a matter of you just get it and you can deliver it. So all of the time Rude is linking back with us and feeding back in terms of what is best practice, what the other countries are doing. So that Gyro panel meet on a regular basis, and they're layered in. Each of them are sort of linked in with 4 or 5 countries, and all of them have really fed back the priority in terms of the next 3 years. For us, we have to create a coach educator qualification. So every country in Europe has to have a coach educator qualification, and within that qualification, one of the key strands is performance analysis. And that really goes to show how far it has come in a very short period of time. Because if you think back 20 years ago, or even back in when I was younger, I remember turning on teletext to find out results. That it's certainly not like that now. It's evolved to a point where, as George alluded to earlier, everything is just immediate. So what we try and do in our UEFA license courses from UEFA B, we try and make sure that coaches are learning through reality-based learning. And what that means really is that when they come into the course, they're provided training through Avenir Sports on how to use performance analysis. And that training specifically helps them to design a working week. So literally, proactively preparing for a game or reactively reacting from a game, what do you do? And that could be literally at UEFA B licence level. It's sort of tiered to U15 elite players or adult players in the amateur game. So you could have a Munster Senior League or a Leinster Senior coach, and he's working 2 nights a week. So instead of him just ad hoc picking things randomly, we would be saying to him, you utilize the software, you analyze the software on a Sunday and a Monday, you send out some clips to your players through WhatsApp or through Huddle itself, which is the easiest platform where you have them all on. And then you turn around and say, well, this is the objective for Tuesday night's training. And it's the objective because reacting from the game, this is something we need to work on. And then on the Thursday night, they might be doing something proactive. So in preparation for the game, this is what we're going to work on. And what the video does, it just clears that grey area, that element of personal opinion in terms of, as I spoke earlier to you, I think you're not playing well, or you were at fault for this goal, or you could be doing this in the game. Video evidence just removes all of that. And it's so clear. And it's one thing from adult learning principles. People learn most. The minute you put up a video, a human being will immediately look to find themselves. They'll look automatically to find where they are, what they're doing. So they're already invested in it, because you have to have value for people to learn, and the best value is to have themselves involved in it. And then as you progress up towards your UEFA license, it becomes a little bit more streamlined in terms of actually analysing how you perform in terms of a GoPro on yourself on the sideline, seeing what your touchline behaviour is, utilising the software to see how you manage your staff in training sessions, how you actually deliver training sessions. And then as you get into the really high end, the Elite UA license, you're talking about seasonal plans, you're talking about having video references in terms of player development at 13, 15, 17, 19. So the head youth development would say, these are the characteristics of the players that we want, these are the areas of improvement, and here's some video references. And then obviously, I think, George, you're best to talk about the pro license one, because we've had such significant success from the current assignments that we've given out this year.
Yeah, so what we did this year was an easy one in terms of 2019. We took the 2019 UEFA Euro 20 qualification campaign, and each of the coaches got a team, a country to analyse. So what they had to do was, for the January block, I think it was last year, Niall, they had a pre-task assignment. And what that was for them to review the team that they were looking at. So for example, Andy Reid, he got Wales, he's an example. So they would have had to produce a report based on, where Wales were at pre-qualifying, manager, systems of play, style of play, key players, etc., etc. Basic enough stuff to kind of get them into it. But then once the game started, they had to fully analyze the games that they were playing. So they had 10 games last year, and they had to really get into detail within those games. So they had to break it down in terms of how the teams attack, defend, transition to attack, transition to defend, set plays. But there was just a phenomenal amount of detail have come out of that. And when you take in, say, for example, if you have 17, 18 students on a course, now you're covering 17, 18 countries. So now we've got the next group of students coming through, and they've already been sent a pre-course task. And that will then continue out, and we'll expect the standards to go up higher again and higher again. And I'm lucky enough, like as Niall mentioned, I'm lucky enough that I'm part of the group that's helping those students. So I have to mentor them and give them a bit of one-on-one time, but also I'm available to them to come through me and ask questions about how they're doing and how it's going. And the level of detail that they're getting, so from their first task in terms of where they're at, to the mid-course review, to their end-of-course review, and the level of detail, like I'm getting phenomenal stuff off them, like detail that I wouldn't have expected at the start to get. And again, some of these guys are, at the start they may not have thought of themselves as an analyst, but the level of detail and the level of work has been absolutely tremendous.
I think a key thing on that too, Jared, though, is the value, and one of the things that is huge is the fact that Rude has created this high performance structure within the organisation, and having a high performance unit, it means that we're all working together. And obviously, if you have got 18, 19 pro licensed students who are at the end of the coaching structure, they're obviously very experienced people, but that's hugely valuable for the senior international team. So you have that scenario where in the event that we do qualify now and we get 3 of the teams that are within that, you'll have had somebody actually spending an entire year. And we've had a number of our coaches have been requested by other countries who have found out about this to actually go and present to their management staff. Damien Duff was asked to go and present to one of the international managers and his coaching team in terms of the country he analysed, and there's been phenomenal success from it. But it's also we do our best in terms of linking in as much as we possibly can. For example, Tom Mohan, in preparation for the tournament which they reached the semi-finals, he was working with a UEFA licensed group, and part of their performance analysis task, he was able to give every single one of the coaches on the course one of the teams that they would be playing against. So he gave them all individual countries to work with, and they analysed those countries. So those 22 coaches that were involved in that, they were connected to that because they were able to give performance analysis reports, video analysis, clippings, all of those things. And obviously when the tournament came about and we were so successful, that was an element of success. That was a part of that success. So it was a great way for those coaches to see value in terms of their work, because sometimes you're fearful in education when you give an assignment that people think they're doing an assignment for the sake of an assignment, or that there's no end product to the assignment, that it's done and it's put on a shelf. While we're really active in terms of how we can make sure that anything we do in coach education can be used, whether it be the coach themselves or whether it be other people within the organisation at international football. And it's really exciting because it genuinely, to see the success of that assignment George gave this year, and to see the guys now coming into the new pro license all hungry to get involved in that assignment because they've seen the success of the others. It's great.
Yeah, and even that, Gareth, just to mention on that, like, I mean, it's not just a random country that they're given. Like, we're handpicking these countries and saying, we think this person will be good for this country. We also think that we really need to know more about this team because we haven't played them in a couple of years, or we're about to play them. And like, I mean, we mentioned about Wales. I mean, when Andy Reid got that topic, Wales wasn't on the radar. It may have been a team we might have got if we'd have qualified for this year's Euros and we played them. However, we now happen to have them in the Nations League. So that's been invaluable. And I know from the international managers meetings already that Andy has been given quite a lot of detail to Stephen and to Keith in terms of, and Damien, in terms of what Wales are doing, what they're like, and what's their potential.
Can you speak a little bit about that, Ger? What is the setup of the international managers meetings? How often does it happen, and what happens in the meetings?
Yeah, so traditionally what would have happened was Ruud would, again, our high performance director would host a meeting once a month with the men's international head coaches and with the women's. And generally what they're doing, or what happens at that, is there's an update from operations, an update from scouting, there's an update on the medical side. I would give an update on performance analysis. But each of the head coaches have to present on what they've done in the previous month. Now, some of them may not have played, so they wouldn't be on that time, but they're generally, what's happening is there's a lot of chat, or a lot around what teams they've played, styles of play, systems of play, things that were good, things that caused them trouble, a lot of really good discussion. So it's not just a guy gets up and presents and shows. Jason doesn't just get up and say, oh, look, this is what we did around the 15s. It'd be a huge amount of dialogue and chat around what's actually good and what's actually, where areas are we missing out on or can we improve on. So that's that. But since the lockdown, what we did was Ruud has now decided to hold a meeting once a week. And this has given me a huge amount of work to do, because what we've done is we've taken, on the men's side, we've taken the three teams that we've got in the Nations League, so Wales, Bulgaria and Finland, and we've taken Slovakia and Northern Ireland and Bosnia. And what we've done is each week the guys have got to present something about those teams. So for example, attacking corners was one topic one week, attacking free kicks, defending corners, defending free kicks. And this week now they're into overall. We also did defending, but this week they're into overall attacking. So they're going to be longer. They're going to be longer presentations in terms of. So, for example, this week we'll have a presentation on Wales and Bosnia. And what will happen then is that there'll be a lot of chat. There'll be a lot of discussion around that. The guys will have visuals. They'll have data. They'll have just a lot of detail around what the team does, what they're good at, where each of the coaches think that they can be got at, or we can gain advantages. And what that does is, again, something that Niall mentioned earlier on, is the coaches then feel like they're part of this. They feel like when we go to play these teams, they'll know a lot about them. Not only can that be a help for Stephen and Keith and Damien to get an understanding of what's happening, but also, and maybe just even a little bit of a leg up to get them a start. But also these guys will know quite a lot about them. We do exactly the same on the women's side. So Right now, they're focused on Ukraine and Germany, the two teams at the games the Vera has left. And Vera sets the tasks every week for the coaches. The coaches then come to me. I get them the footage, give them some training. We work through that, and it's just been a phenomenal success. And that's every single week, 2-hour meetings. It's heavy going from my point of view because I'm doing a lot of work to prepare for them, but it's good.
So I can see that you've used your 5 years of experience here to get other people to do your homework for you.
Absolutely.
So that's one way of getting ahead, Niall. Just it's a really interesting point there of the how all the coaches are interacting on this level, as Jerry's kind of alluded to there. I suppose that kind of links back to the continuity of football and how we want to play our international teams as well, Niall, isn't it?
Definitely, and I think it's a really exciting time. And obviously, Ruud has been working on this in terms of both in the international setup, but in the National League setup. And I always say Rome wasn't built in a day, and 10 years in football is nothing. It'll just go like that. And you see it over the last number of years, the phenomenal strides we've taken. And you look at it in terms of, I think last season or this season alone, the under-15s had something like a 70% win rate. And like that wasn't a 70% win rate against opposition that would be deemed weaker than them. I think primarily most of those countries were either of equal status or above them in terms of the coefficient. So it's a phenomenal step forward in terms of where we're going, and we're seeing the results on the grass because the 17s have been involved in the finals, the last 8 in the last number of years, the 19s, and the success that Tom Owen had. And again, I reiterate, and I said this in a previous webinar, the success that he had with limited resources, because a number of the players that would have been in that starting 11 or that would have been involved in the qualification weren't available. But definitely, I think now having that step in with Stephen in the senior team with Vera and in the women's side of the house, I think there is a phenomenal unification from top to bottom. And as I discussed earlier, it's a really exciting time for us in Coach Ed with the new strategy in terms of 2021 to 2025. But that aligns with Ruud's high performance strategy, which is also going to go over that 5-year period. And the amount of work that has gone into that over the last number of years in terms of research, not only in our own sport, but Ruud has held meetings with other governing bodies within Ireland and outside of Ireland, and he's held interviews with high performance experts all over the world. So I really am in an excited place in terms of Irish football, because I genuinely believe that from top to bottom there's a connection. I understand that within the structural changes that are currently ongoing within the organisation, that streamlined connection is going to follow through as well. So from grassroots into high performance, there's going to be much more joint up thinking, and there's going to be much more streamlined approach in terms of the connection of staff and where they're going to be working. So for me, I think at the moment in time, we're in a really, really good place. I think we're going to get into an even better place with the excitement that is going to be there of the hosting the 21 or the Euro 21 next year. I think we have a great opportunity with the time that's been given out to Stephen and his management team and the players. And I think Vera, not to put pressure on her, but I think it could be an opportunity where we could have our 2 senior teams competing at the highest levels. And for us, that's the important thing, really, once you get that transfer into the senior football, because everyone, no matter what you're doing on the ground, no matter how much time and the management meetings, and you talked there, Jared, about that, everything that Jared spoke about in terms of the international managers meetings, that's literally putting into practice UEFA's adult learning principles. UEFA did study a number of years ago in Leeds Beckett, and it was all about how do adults learn and what is the best way for adults to learn. And it is if it includes that they're valued, that the education is authentic, that there's collaboration, that there's feedback, that they're engaged, and that it's challenging. And that environment that you're talking about there for the likes of the international managers discussing that, speaking to the senior manager, men's and women's, that's all of those things coming to life. And that's the benefit of having somebody like Ruud who is in that Gyro panel, because he knows how to bring it to life. He knows how to bring it to fruition. And you see that with what he's done in the 13s, 15s, 17s, 19s, and with the 17s and the girls. And obviously within the new strategy, there's going to be more steps to sort of bridge those gaps that we've spoken about before. So for me, I think from top to bottom, we're in a really, really good place, and it's an exciting time. And I think with a lot of the younger players, the coronavirus has been a bit of a negative, but it's given them a little bit more time to age, and they're coming into a little bit more experience in life. And I think it's going to be a really exciting time for every aspect of Irish football.
Jared, can you speak a little bit about your role on a match day with the Republic of Ireland men's team? I know you've kind of touched on a couple of different points there, and particularly how you utilised performance analysis when you're at Portlaoise at a different type of level, but at the very elite level. What would be your role on match day?
Okay, well, obviously, pre-match day, you've done all your work, and now it's up to the players. So you basically let them at it, right? But I suppose this has changed a couple of times in the last couple of years in terms of what you would actually do. So let's say, for example, we've got a game in the Aviva Stadium. What will happen is I'll send the equipment on early on. That'll get on to the stadium at about 9:30. We'll leave then around 5:15, depending on traffic and that. And then we'll head in and we'll arrive somewhere around 6 p.m. So it's maybe a quarter day kickoff. What we'll do then is, and I'm lucky enough that Gary Seary is going to be involved with me with the senior men's team in this campaign. Martin Doyle was involved with me in the last one. So what we'll do is they'll be already set up at the stadium, at the ground, and they'll have everything ready. So in the Aviva Stadium, what you have is you have a big screen TV in the dressing room, okay, and where the players are. What we'll do is, I'm talking about in the past, Stephen may change some of this in the future, but what we do is we'd have the set pieces would be rolling there. Some bits of information the players may need to have, so that's just set that up quickly. There's an analysis room in the stadium as well, and what will happen then is I'll set up in there, and if there's any last minute clips that the players want to have a look at, generally speaking, one or two of them might look for something at that stage, but they're fairly well educated at that stage on the opposition. And then we utilize the coaches box in the stadium as well, because as you know, it's the RFU own the stadium, so it's set up for coaches boxes. When you see rugby games being played, it'll always head to coaches boxes, and the head coach will be based in there. So we set up in there and generally have at least one or maybe two people there. I'll have two other camera operators as well. One, Aidan McDonough, sets up above in the gantry, and I'll have one behind the goal. And what I'll also do is NEP will provide me with as many camera angles as I want. So I generally take TV footage, wide angle footage, behind goal, 18-yard box, and a second one on the second 18-yard box as well. So 5 or 6 different angles are covered in there, and I suppose our own 2 cameramen, and we then generally do a panoramic wide as well. So we have up to 8 angles coming in live into the coach's box, into the dressing room, and it's also in now with the change in technology. We now also have that on the technical area. So the likes of Keith and Damien will have access to an iPad on the bench, and they can just watch the game live and there as well, review it, multi-angle again. We can have up to 4 angles going back, and we'll be tagging the game. So generally speaking, Martin would have done that in the past. Gary will be doing that going forward. And what they do is they'll tag the game, and that footage is sent to the bench as well. We can also, if there's any injuries, the medical staff can review that, and that's been important for us in the past as well. Because now, again, in the change of the laws of the game, we're able to use walkie-talkies, so they'll be all linked up with me as well. So last campaign it was Alan Kelly would have done that, and Alan is there again this year with Stephen. So he will communicate throughout the game with me if there's anything that they want to see pushed through to them, or at half time. And we're also getting constant, we also use a couple of different providers for fitness data, so we're getting that pushed through to us as well, and I'm generally overseeing that, but then sending that through to Jason Black, who's been involved with us in the past and is with us again in the future. So that's we're getting information on the players' distances, sprint distances, recoveries, all of that sort of stuff is getting through to them as well. So
that would mean, sorry, in terms of you would know if a player is getting ready to close the burnout, for example.
Yeah, that's there for us if we want to use that. Yeah.
And in terms of tagging, you said what does that mean specifically for people who don't know?
So again, it depends on what the head coach is looking for, and why we stick within the 4 functions of the game: attack, transition to defend, transition to attack, defend, and obviously set pieces. So we stick within those ones. But knowing a head coach, each one of them might have something different in terms of the way they look at the game, and there might be something specific. So we don't want to overdo the tagging during the game. So we don't do every single attack, every single transition, because you just have far too much. But you might be strategic about it and say that might be something that they might want to have a look at halftime, so it's done quickly. Obviously, there's a more comprehensive review done after the game in terms of tagging and in terms of, but we can have multi-taggers, so players will be tagging the players as well. So, for example, in an away game, a player can jump on the flight on the way back and have a look at all their actions during the game.
Sorry, does that come from you talking with the manager in advance, or are you noticing something in the game yourself? For example, you're tagging their left back plays very high up the pitch or something, so there's space to exploit him behind them or something. Is that an example?
Yeah, so that's a fairly simple example, but yes. So what would happen is that would be something we would have recognised in advance. The coaches would have looked at, would have reviewed opposition, would have said that maybe potentially that was a weakness, that we could transition quickly behind the left back, and it might have been part of the game plan. So again, it would depend on the head coach. All of our coaches have the ability to do this. All of our teams have the ability to do this. And if that was something that was there and it was an option, maybe we weren't doing that. So say, for example, was getting onto a central midfielder and he or she should be playing that ball in behind the left back. So because we've got a winger who can do that. Then what we could do is we can have 1 or 2 clips for half time where we can maybe show that to either the team or an individual. Again, you can't overdo it, but again, that's knowing your head coaches, knowing what they're looking for, and because you know what they're looking for, and you've been watching the training sessions all week, and you've been in the team meetings, and you've been helping to analyse the opposition in advance, you know fairly quickly what they want. So you see that happening during the game. That's what you're looking for. So there's 2 styles of. So you're tagging some of the things that happen, but you're also looking for the really key niche things that you're looking for to try and win the game. So yeah, that's then. So then at halftime, we would have a quick chat with the head coaches and the staff before you actually present to the players. And again, some days you won't present, some days you will. It'll depending on how the game is going, or if we have to solve problems. And lots of times you have to solve problems, and lots of times you don't. And then post game, you might have a quick review. Oftentimes there might have been something controversial, even simple as the head coach now needs to go and be interviewed by RT and Sky and Virgin, and they're, did you see the incident? And they need to have a clear understanding of what actually happened before they get to do that interview, so they can cool down, maybe look at it, maybe have a chat about it, and then go out and have a chat to the media guys, and then say, look, I had a look at it and I'm not happy with it, or I'm happy with it, or whatever it was. So that's all there for them. And then post game, it's working really hard, pull all those angles back in together, make sure we have everything ready, and you're working then to get the game completed. And that could be 6-7 hours later.
How regular is it that players might come to you to talk about specific clips or look for clips on an opposition player or their own performance?
Again, at each team it's different. A lot of that would depend on how the player itself learns. So some players will really be into it, and some players will be like, no, I only need small amounts of detail. So, but it's there for everybody, and I'd say probably most squads you'd be looking at 70% of the players would be looking for something. A lot. It's looking for a lot, and maybe the other 30% might only look for a small amount. But again, that depends on the individual player. Most of our teams now, they have team meetings, individual meetings, unit meetings, and that depends on the head coach and what they want. But look, players are used to this now with their clubs. They're used to this at all levels of the game, where they want to review their own actions.
No, that's something you've already alluded to in this conversation, that it's almost a healthy thing, isn't it, for players to go and look for that footage and to kind of review their own performance and their own standing within a game or a training session.
Yeah, definitely. And it's something that was only recently I was reading about that, where feedback doesn't exist to the majority, nearly 80% of the time, the person involved will think of it as a negative. So you imagine if you're working with 20 players, and if you don't give them feedback, if you don't give 18 of them feedback, the 18 of them, sadly, 16 of which could possibly be thinking they've done something wrong. So feedback is hugely important in what we do as coaches, in our role as a coach. But obviously, time is our most valuable asset, and the problem with that is it's such a limited thing. We can't really spend as much time with every single individual as we can. And that's again where performance analysis comes in, because you as the head coach, whether it be in grassroots, whether it be in the semi-professional game or the highest levels of game in international football, to create time, you can give those clips to your players, and that's giving them feedback. So by them having those clips or having those things available to them, whether it be individual clips, unit clips, their participation in terms of their connection with other players, whatever it is, key moments of the game, having those available for the player so efficiently and so quickly after a game gives them that feedback. And it then really makes sure that when the coach or the manager is speaking to the group or speaking to individuals within the group, they've all objectively seen it. because sometimes when you only have limited time, especially in international football, you really have very limited time in terms of preparing for games or moving to the next game. The transition is extremely fast because you're traveling or you're going and you might only have one training session. You have to utilize performance analysis and you have to utilize the video to prepare your players. And that's exactly the same as a grassroots coach. If you literally only have 6 to 9 year olds like my home club would have in a Saturday morning School of Excellence Academy, they come in for 2 hours every Saturday morning. How can you get them to prepare themselves or to develop themselves? And that's where things like the FAI Homeschools program is a phenomenal program now, because it gives individual tasks that players can practice and you can utilize those tasks. And then what coaches can do is be very aware of the individual tasks day to day and turn around and say, okay, for the first 15 minutes of our practice this week, we're going to practice the FAI Homeschools tasks. And that's then seeing them and giving them feedback directly about that. But if you have performance analysis, you can turn around to a parent and say to the parent, okay, have a look at this FAI Homeschools task today. We want you to show a 5-minute clip of your son or your daughter practicing this. And they upload it to Huddle, and then the coach can give them direct feedback. And the uploading of that video to Huddle is as simple as uploading a video to Facebook or Twitter or any social media platform. So that really then sees the coach not even losing that 15 minutes on a Saturday talking about the homeschool. They've already given those feedback points to them. So it's really a platform that I genuinely believe it's nearly like your right-hand man or right-hand woman. It's something that every coach should be comfortable with and something that every coach should utilize to the respective levels they're working.
I mean, Niall, sorry, Gareth, Niall, you spoke there. This is something, Gareth, you're aware of in terms of, we say, being involved in international teams. You play for the senior men's team, for example, we play on a Thursday night, you'll play again on Sunday. Now, this might change, there's talks about 9 games being on this year. That's potentially 3 games in one camp. I mean, that's unheard of before. Well, how much time are we going to have in between? So you're traveling, you've got to recover, you've got to get ready for the next game. So you don't have that time to actually sit through with every single player in a 23-person squad. Same with senior women's, they might have an extra day to recover, but that's about it. So therefore then you need to have the footage up onto a platform, and that's why we use Huddle, because it works with our sports code software. We tag the games, we do all that in sports code, we upload to Huddle. So oftentimes when the player's back in the hotel and they might say to you, I didn't get a chance to have a look at my footage, is it up on Huddle yet? And you'll say, yeah, go in there and it's there for you. So you've done all your work, and then it's just a case of disseminating it out to the players. All of the players get a login. When they come in for training that week, they're part of a group for that week, so they'll get access to the training sessions straight after training. So we film all the training sessions at every age level internationally, and the footage is put up straight away. Oftentimes they're back in the hotel before it's done. At some levels, senior men, senior women's, we tag the training sessions as well, so players can just go straight in and have a look at their own clips. I mean, this is now, as we mentioned before, we don't often have times to have a one-on-one feedback with the players, but they can go in and look at themselves, and they know themselves. And that's what they're used to at elite clubs, and that's what we need to provide here. And it's something that can be provided now at grassroots level as well.
It's a great way of looking at it there, of getting the players to kind of involved in the process there, that they can look at it, they can come and communicate with you, and that their learning process as well is similar to what Tom Owen was talking about in one of our webinars in terms of team meetings, of empowering the players to be involved in the process.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. It's a massive part of it, because we found that that's probably the best way for them to learn. It's no longer the case, and it is still being done. But I think what's one of the big dramatic changes in the last few years, and that's something that's coming from coach education as well, we don't really have the scenarios as much anymore where you've got one person at the top of the room talking to 24 or 23 players and giving them direction for half an hour, 40 minutes. Everything is instant now. The players want to see things instantly, they want to see things quickly, and they want to move on. So now we have smaller groups, we have smaller group work, we have more individual work, and that seems to be how players want to learn and take more value from their meetings.
Niall, you touched on that this is going to be implemented in courses going forward. There's been tremendous work obviously already done across the association and in the coach education department. The future is very much performance analysis driven.
Yeah, and I think it's about providing people, even those people at the grassroots level that might be apprehensive and saying, oh my God, I can't use this type of software, or we can't afford this type of software. There's no need. The software is a phenomenal tool, and it's extremely cost effective in terms of what you get in learning and value from it. it really is a nominal fee if you look at it in perception of an overall picture. But even for people that might be apprehensive of it, we will still be providing volunteer and parent coaches with the skill sets in terms of notational analysis, the most simplest form. So rather than somebody just looking at their son or their daughter playing or coaching their local team in the small sided games and looking at different things and giving their players feedback on what they think subjectively, if they can record it as simply on a smartphone where you're recording it and you can turn around afterwards and you can say to yourself, even Huddle themselves have a free app online called Huddle Technique that you can download for free, and you can literally animate and draw pictures and visualize it on your phone. It's phenomenal. So for people to be able to do that, because I genuinely believe from my own experience of becoming a parent and seeing my son, who's only 3.5, coming through, everything that is done visually, they interact with. They're most comfortable now in terms of seeing things, in teaching them how to do things. They really do just learn from that visual effect, because the best way to learn is to experience it. That's 100% it. And then the next best way for somebody to learn is to have something objectively to video reference what they experienced. So to go back to a young player and say, that was a really good way of passing the ball. Why was it a good way of passing the ball? Well, have a look at it. Tell me what was good about it, you think. And then they can go into the intricacies of the technique that is involved. And look, for us, it's so important that everything we talk about is creating this universal approach in Irish football. That's what we want. We have a universal football action language where we talk about communication, decision, execution, football fitness, and every aspect of what we do is within the game. And we try and say to people, we want you to focus on making things reality-based, game-related, challenge young players through opposition, making it real so that they can transfer the skills that they're learning into the team environment. But there is going to be so much opportunity to do things at home now. And I reiterate the FAI home schools, that's an example. But through Huddle or through a platform like that, you will be able to send them videos yourself. So you might just turn around and record 1 or 2 videos yourself as a coach and ask them to work on something specific. They might have to meet up with their friends or 2 or 3 of their friends and do a 2v2, or they might have to turn around and work on 1v1s with their mum or their dad. And it's about giving them this video reference and giving them a platform which is a safe platform. And that's what I really like too about Huddle performance analysis. When in the grassroots environment, there are elements of security in terms of putting stuff out on social media because you're putting it in the public eye. But with Huddle, it's your own private account. So you invite members. You might have a team of 20 players and you invite their 40 parents, and it's the 40 parents' emails, and it's the parents will be showing the kids. So the kids don't access it without the parents aware. So it's really important that it's organized, structured, and it's safe. And that's really, really key, that you manage what's going up into those environments. And I agree with you. I believe that in the next number of years, performance analysis is only going to continue to grow, and it's only going to become more important for everyone involved, because it's the way in which we interact these days.
We have an assignment for any coaches, grassroots coaches or UEFA licensed coaches to get involved to earn some CPD hours. Can you explain a bit more?
Yeah, it's a great opportunity, and it's something that Jared and I spoke about. We want to give people an insight into what it's like being an international coach and having the perception of the supports that Jared will give. So what's going to happen is, for anyone that wants to do the analysis assignment, Jared will be sending out a number of clips in relation to an opposition team that they experienced in the last number of months. And what the coach will be expected to do is to identify how they're going to deal with that and design a training session in relation to that. So it's going to be reality based. It's going to be something that Jared and the international staff have experienced in the senior international game. So it's a great insight into reality based learning of what goes on behind the scenes in international football. So for anyone interested in doing that assignment, you have 1 week from today to complete it and return it to jared.dunne@fai.ie. And anyone that requires the assignment can just use that email address, and Jared will send out the clips by email.
Okay, guys, that's brilliant. Thanks very much. Thanks, Ger. Thanks, Niall. Some great insight there. And I think, as you've kind of spoke about throughout the whole webinar there, that this relates to grassroots coaches and coaches at elite level all the way through. And I think there's great work being done in this area and a lot more to come. So thanks very much. And for anybody who wants to get in touch, you can leave your comments on social media, or you can email jared.dunne@fei.ie or niall.o'regan@fei.ie for further information. Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.